Dear students, today we are going to see the NCERT topic, chapter 8, cell, the unit of life. Right? We are seeing the NCERT botany part. Right? Today we are going to see the chapter number 8, cell, the basic unit of life. We might have seen different types of living and the non-living things when we see around, right? What makes it different from the living organisms? So we have seen a lot of living and non-living things, right? So when we look around, we might have seen about a lot of living and non-living things, right? So what it makes a living organism? What it makes a living organism, right? The answer is obviously you will be having the presence of the cell, right? You will be having, the answer is the presence of cell, right? So you might have also asked the question, what makes it different from the non-living thing, or what the non-living thing does not have, right? The thing is, or the answer is the presence of the cell, right? The cell is the basic unit of life, right? You will be having the cell is the basic unit of life, right? So all the organisms, you will be having either it may be a unicellular organism or a multicellular organism. It is composed of cell, right? All the organisms are composed of cell, right? Either it may be a unicellular organism or a multicellular organism, right? You might be having either a unicellular or an multicellular organisms. The main difference between a unicellular or the multicellular organism is the presence of the different types of cell in case of multicellular organisms, a single cell in case of a unicellular organism. So unicellular organisms, you know, it is made up of a single cell, and multicellular organisms, they will be having more than one type or one number of cells, right? You will be having, it may be either made up of 2, 3, or you will be having many multicellular organisms, right? So unicellular organisms, you will be having the yeast, right? You will be having the prokaryotic bacteria, you will be having the amoeba. These are the unicellular organisms. Multicellular organisms, you will be having the animals, plants, human beings. These are the multicellular organisms. So you will be having all the organisms, they are made up of cells, or it is composed of cells. You will be having the unicellular, which is made up of single cell, and multicellular, which is made up of more than a single cell, right? Now we are going to see what is the cell. So in this chapter we are mainly going to see what is a cell, the history behind the discovery of the cell. Then we are going to see about the composition of the cell, unicellular, multicellular we are going to see. Then different types or the shapes of the cell. Then we are going to see about the prokaryotic organization and the eukaryotic organization, and in detail about the cell organelles and their functions, right? Now we are going to see what is a cell. what is a cell, right? So you might be having, we have seen about the unicellular organisms. These are the organisms which will be having a single cell. Even though it is a single cell, it is capable of independent existence and performing the essential functions of life. So the cell is capable of doing all these functions. So you will be having, the cell is the one, you will be having the first character, right? So it is of independent existence. You will be having the independent in existence, right? So it will be having the independent existence and it performs the essential functions of life. The second one is performs the essential functions of life, right? So you will be having the main criteria which has the tendency of performing the essential functions of life, right? So you will be having, it performs, or you will be having the tendency of performing the essential functions of life, right? So the cell is the fundamental structure and functional unit of all living organisms, right? So you will be having, cell is the fundamental structure and functional unit of all living organisms. So this is the main quality of the cell, right? So cell is the fundamental structure and functional unit of all living organisms because it will be independent in existence and performs the various functions of the life, right? So we have to see about the history, right? This Anton van Leeuwenhoek, he was the one who first saw the cell and he described about the life cell, right? So you will be asking the question, who discovered the cell, first cell? You will be having this Anton van, right? You will be having the difference between van or van, you will be having, right? Some they will be returning as VON, Anton van Leeuwenhoek, right? So he is basically a Dutch cloth merchant, right? Then he became the scientist. This Anton van Leeuwenhoek, he was the one who first saw and described a live cell, right? So he is a Dutch cloth merchant and he was very curious, right? So he is the one, he is also often regarded as the father of microscopy because even before the invention of the microscope, he used to have the magnifying lenses, right? Because since he is a cloth merchant, he has to see the density of the threads which has been woven in the cloths. So by his curiosity, he piled up the lenses and he used to saw the cell, right? Just he has to see some of the scrap his teeth and he used to see what is present, and he is also the one who first saw the bacteria. Then he has seen some of the unicellular forms which is present in the pond, and he is also the one who first saw the sperm cells, right? So Anton van Leeuwenhoek, who is often regarded as the father of microscopy because he is the one who first saw the live cell. Then we have the Robert Brown, right? So Robert Brown, he later discovered the nucleus. Robert Brown, right? So he is the one who first later discovered the nucleus. So nucleus is often regarded as the brain of the cell or the controlling center of the cell. Like all the functions which has to be performed by the cell is under the control of nucleus, right? So you will be having the Robert Brown, which later discovered the nucleus. So you will be having the different prokaryotic cell and the eukaryotic cell, because they won't be having the well-defined nucleus, nuclear membrane. Those things will not be present in case of prokaryotes, but in eukaryotes you will be having the well-defined nucleus with the nuclear membrane and the bounded structures, right? So you will be having the history, right? And later, because of the invention of the microscope and the electron microscope, especially in the 1980s, after the discovery of the electron microscope, this is one of the greatest invention in human mankind. Because of that, you might be able to see the ultra structure of the cell, right? So you will be having the ultra structure, right? You can able to see the ultra structures and the structural details. What are the structural details in the cell? You can able to see with the help of this discovered electron microscope, right? So the electron microscopy is the greatest invention in the field of biology. You can able to see the ultra structure and the structural details of the cell, because it was one of the greatest invention, right? Now we are going to see about the cell theory. So what is this cell theory? Who are the persons who stood behind the formulation of this cell theory, and what are the things they have proposed? We are going to see them in detail, right? Cell theory. Right? The cell theory is an important concept, right? This was formulated by three persons, by the contribution of three persons. We will see one after the other, right? In the year 1838, right? So you will be having the Matthias Schleden, right? You will be having the person who is named as the Matthias Schleden. So this Matthias Schleden is a German botanist, right? He is a German botanist. So since he is a German botanist, you might clearly know that he has performed something regarding the plants, right? So he was performing his experiments or his research activities in plants, and he has found a thing that these plants are composed of different kinds of cells, right? The thing he has found is the plants are composed of different kinds of cells, right? So he has found that the plants are composed of different kinds of the cells, and he has also found that they work in a continuous fashion, right? They will be having which forms the tissues of the plant, right? So you will be having this. These plants are composed of different kinds of cells. These forms the tissues of the plant, right? You might have known that the tissue, it comes from the French word which means tissue, which is closely woven, right? You will be having the closely compact network, right? So he has found that these plants are composed of the different kinds of cells, and these performs the tissues of the plants, and they forms all the essential works or the functions needed for this plant. This was the found by Matthias Schleden. He is a German botanist, and In the year 1839, right, another scientist. 1839, we will be having Theodor Schwann, right? So he is a British zoologist. Right? He is a British zoologist. So since he is a British zoologist, he might have done his experiments in animal cells, right? So what he has found is that the animal cells have a thin outer layer, right, which is called as the plasma membrane. Right? In his findings, he has found that animal cells have a outer thin layer or outer thin membrane, which is called as the plasma membrane. Right? He has found the plasma membrane. Right? So this plasma membrane is the outermost boundary of the animal cell. He has found that it is made up of an outer layer which is thin in structure, which is called as the plasma membrane. But he has also performed his experiments in plant cell, and he has also found that the plant cell has a unique cell wall, right? Plant cell has a unique cell wall, right? He has found that the plant cell has an unique cell wall which is different in character, right? So he has found that the bodies of animals and plants are composed of cell and the products of cell, right? What he has found is that this Theodor Schwann, he has found that the bodies of animal and plants are composed of cell and its products. Right? You will be having the bodies of the cell are composed of the cell and the products of the cell or and its products. Right? So these are the findings by the Matthias Clearen and the Theodor Schwann, right? So, but they did not tell about the how the new cells it has arise, or they have not told about the cell division, how they divide, right? So, in the year 1855, this was given by Rudolf Virchow, right? So, they have told about the cell theory. This Matthias Clearen, the plants are composed of different kinds of cells. This forms the tissues of the plant. And in 1839, Theodor Schwann, he is a British zoologist. He has announced or he has concluded that animal cells have an outer thin layer which is called as the plasma membrane, and plant cell have the unique cell wall. So he has come to a conclusion that both the animal cell and the plant cells are composed of cells and products of its cell. So later in the year 1855, we will be having in the year 1855. In the year 1855, we will be having the Rudolf Virchow, right? So this Rudolf Virchow, right? He is a German physician, right? So he is also a German and he is a physician, right? So what he has done that he has found that cells divide and new cells are formed. He has given the statement: cells divide and new cells are formed, right? So how the new cells are formed? The new cells are formed from the pre-existing cells, right? So since he is a German, he has given the statement in German: omnis cellula e cellula, right? This is an important question where they will be often asking in your need part, right? Omnis cellula e cellula is the statement which was given by Rudolf Virchow, a German physician, and he is also a biologist, right? So he has given his statement that cells divide and new cells are formed. So you will be having the cell theory. It come out with the new findings from these three persons: Matthias Clearen, Theodor Schwann, and Rudolf Virchow. Right? They have concluded or they have postulated the cell theory with two main characters. All living organisms are made up of cells. As we know that cell is the structural and functional unit of living organisms, and new cells are formed from pre-existing cells. And new cells are formed from the pre-existing cells. This was the statement which was given by these three, and they formulated the cell theory. All living organisms are made up of cells, and the new cells arise from pre-existing cells. Right? This was the history behind the cell theory. Now we are going to see about the an overview of cell. Right? What are the things which are present in cell, and what are the things which are present in a prokaryotic and in eukaryotic cell, and the organelles which makes them unique from each other. We are going to see them. We are going to see about an overview of cell. So in this topic we are mainly going to see about the cells, right? You might have seen onion peel and a human cheek cell. When we view it under the microscope, you might be able to see the different structural details, right? We are going to see about if you view an onion peel, right, and the human cheek cell of an human. It is an animal cell and it is a plant cell, right? So this is an animal cell, right? You will be having the animal cell and the plant cell. So onion peel, you might have been seen that you will be having the structural details, right? You will be having the cell like this, and you will be having the cell, right? So you will be having the distinct nucleus, you will be having the outermost, you will be having the cell wall, you will be having, then you will be having the plasma membrane, then you will be having the nucleus. Whereas in case of the cheek cell, you will be having the cells, right, which will be having the outermost, which is the plasma membrane, right? So when we view these cells under the microscope, we can able to see the different structural details with that of the plant and the animal cell, right? So you will be having the various structural details, right? Especially the cells are categorized into two types. We will be having the two types, which is based on the nucleus, right? Since predominantly you will be having the cell, you will be having the nucleus, right? So So you will be having the two types of the cells based on the nucleus. These are the prokaryotic cell and the eukaryotic cell. You will be having the two cells which is called as the prokaryotic cell and the eukaryotic cell. Right? Pro in the sense you will be having the first or primitive or the before, right? You will be having, right, or ancient, right? Ancient karyotic is something regarded with the nucleus. So these are the primitive nucleus bearing cells, and you in the sense you will be having the true karyotic means something related to the nucleus. So you will be having the true nucleus bearing cells, which means it is not the false one, it is the primitive or the ancient, right? So pseudo means only false, pro is not false, right? So pro means first formed or the anciently or the primitive formed cell, nucleus bearing cells. These are the true nucleus bearing cells, which are the eukaryotic cells, right? So when we see this prokaryotic cell and the eukaryotic cell, you will not be having the membrane bound organelles in case of the prokaryotic cell. Prokaryotic cells does not have any membrane bound organelles, they don't have the distinct nucleus, right? Prokaryotic cell, right? We will see about the prokaryotic cells, right? You will be having the different types of prokaryotic cells, bacteria, blue-green algae, mycoplasma, pleuropneumonia like organisms, those you are having. Prokaryotic cells, if we compare with that of the bacteria, right? So bacteria is an example, right? These prokaryotic cells, they do not have membrane bound organelles, is absent, right? So they do not have the membrane bound organelles. The membrane bound organelles are mitochondria, Golgi bodies. They don't have this endoplasmic reticulum, right? Mitochondria, chloroplasts. Those are the things they will be absent in case of the bacteria, right? And no well defined nucleus, or the well defined nucleus is absent in case of the prokaryotes, because these are called as the incipient nucleus, right? Incipient nucleus means they are not fully developed, as we tell that it is the anciently formed the nucleus, right? They don't have the nucleus, but they have ribosomes, right? So ribosomes, you should not confuse. Ribosomes are no membrane present in case of the ribosomes, because they are called as the membrane less organelles, right? So you won't be having any membrane in case of the ribosomes, because they don't have the membrane, right? These are membranous organelles. You will be having the differences, right? 70S type of ribosomes is present in case of this bacteria and other prokaryotic organisms, and 80S type of the ribosomes are present in case of the eukaryotic organism, right? So you will not be having any membrane bound organelles. These are entirely absent in case of the prokaryotic cells, right? And when we see about the structure, you will be having the cytoplasm, which is present in case of both prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell. Cytoplasm, you will be having the, which is the jelly matrix, right? You will be having the semi-solid, semi-fluid matrix or the semi-solid matrix, which is present in the cell. Inside the cells, you will be having, in cytoplasm, you will be having the various metabolic activities which will be taking place in case of the cytoplasm, right? So you will be having some of the locomotory organelles which will be present in case of this prokaryotes. Those things we will see in detail when we see a different topic under the heading prokaryotic cell, right? Now we will see about the eukaryotic cell. overview, right? We are going to see about the eukaryotic cell. Eukaryotic cell, you will be having all the example is all plants and animal cells, right? You will be having, it comes under the heading which is the eukaryotic cell. So eukaryotic cells, you will be having the cell structures, right? Especially the membrane bound organelles. Membrane bound organelles, in the sense you will be having the double membrane organelles, right? Especially you will be having the mitochondria, right? Then you will be having the chloroplast, and you will be having the nucleus, right? These are the double membrane. You will be having the single membrane bound organelles, right? You will be having the Golgi complex, right? These are often called as the Golgi complex, Golgi bodies, or Golgi apparatus, right? You will be having the various names, right? You can either call it as Golgi bodies, Golgi complex, Golgi apparatus, right? Endoplasmic reticulum. Lysosomes, vacuoles, right? These are the single membrane organelles, because this comes under the heading which is called as the endomembrane system, right? So you will be having this Golgi complex, endoplasmic reticulum, lysosomes, and vacuoles, right? Vacuoles, as you know, it is made up of a single membrane which is called as the tonoplast, right? And no membrane organelle, as we know, as we have seen already in case of the prokaryotic cell, we will be having the ribosomes. These are the ones which are usually present during the protein synthesis, and these ribosomes, they are always found in association with the endoplasmic reticulum, because endoplasmic reticulum you will be having the two types, which is the smooth and one is the rough, right? So in the rough you will be having, due to the presence of ribosomes, right? You will be having the ribosomes in case of this rough endoplasmic reticulum, and the thing you will be having the cytoplasm, right? The cytoplasm is the one which is the jelly matrix, as in case of the prokaryotic. So you will be having the various metabolic activities. You will be having the various metabolic activities which takes place inside this cytoplasm, and you have to remember this term, which is the protoplasm, right? So cytoplasm and the protoplasm are somewhat related to each other, but they are different. Cytoplasm is the jelly matrix which is present inside the cell. This protoplasm is the combination of cytoplasm plus cell organelles, right? Cytoplasm cell organelles. Usually, some of the persons, they will be regarding as it is a cytoplasm cell organelles, especially the nucleus, right? So cell organelles, in the sense, it also includes the nucleus. So protoplasm is the combination of the cytoplasm together with the cell organelles. So cytoplasm is called as the living material, or the living part of the cell is called as the protoplasm, and cytoplasm is the jelly matrix, wherein you will be having the substratum, right? This is a semi-fluid part, right? So you will be having this as the overview of the cell. Now we are going to see about the various shapes of the cell, right? You will be having the different shapes, right? You will be having entirely different varieties of shapes. You will be having a variety of shapes of the cell, right? We will see a few of them. So we have seen about the prokaryotic and eukaryotic overview and the plants and the animal cells, right? So we will see in detailedly in the forthcoming classes, right? So now we will see about the shapes of the cell, right? Regarding the shapes, you will be having the various shapes, right? You will be having the disc shape, you will be having, right? You will be having the disc shape, round or oval, right? Then you will be having the long and narrow, then you will be having long and branched cells, right? Then you will be having the elongated shape, right? You will be having the elongated shapes, you will be having, right? So you will be having the various shapes. Disc shape, as we know that you will be having the RBC, right? You will be RBC is the disc shape. Then you will be having the round or the oval, you will be having the mesophyll cells, right? Then long and narrow, you will be having the columnar epithelium, you will be having the columnar epithelial cells. Then long and branched in case of the nerve cells, neurons. Elongated you will be having in case of the tracheids, right? Tracheids you might have seen in the vascular system, right? Then you will be having the irregular. Irregular is also called as the amoeboid shape, right? Amoeboid shape, we will be having this WBC, amoeba and WBC, right? White blood cells or the white blood corpuscles you will be having, right? So before going into the shape, we will also see the size, right? So you will be having the size of the smallest cell, which is the PPLO, mycoplasma you will be having, right? So you will be having the PPLO which ranges about 0.3 micron, and you will be having the bacteria which ranges from 3 to 5 micron meter. You will be having micron meter in length, right? You will be having. Then you will be having the RBC, right, which will be about 7 microns, right? You will be having the 7 micron meter is the size of the RBC, and you will be having the ostrich. So ostrich cell is the largest cell, right? The smallest cell is the pleuropneumonia like organism, CPLO, and you will be having the ostrich. Ostrich you will be having about 5 to 7 inches in diameter, right? So 1 inch, you might remember that it will be about 2.54 centimeters, right? So you will be having around 18 centimeters in diameter you will be having, right? So you will be having such a big is the size of the ostrich, but it is a single cell, right? So then it will form the zygote and the embryo will be developed, but ostrich egg is the largest cell, right? So you will be having the various shapes and the sizes. So today we have seen the various shapes of the cell. So regarding the shapes as a diagrammatic picture view, we will see it in the next class, right? So we will see the various structures of the RBC, how it will be, right? Then we will see about the various structures of the cells or the shapes of the cells in the next class. So today we have seen about the introduction of the cell, what is a cell, and you have seen about the different history behind the cell theory we have seen. This we should not forget about this Matthias Kleeren, Theodor Schivan and Rudolf Virchow, they postulated the cell theory. All living organisms are made up of cell. So it is a structural functional unit of all living organisms, and new cells arise from the pre-existing cells. And we have seen about the overview of the cell, a little explanation regarding the prokaryotic cell and the eukaryotic cell. Thank you, students.